Hey, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Shaun Cook joins us today. He is strategic account manager for Island, the secure browser, I believe is the tagline. Shaun, thank you so much for joining us today.
Mr. Schaefer, thank you so much. It's been it's a real pleasure. It's fantastic to be here this morning.
And I have to do a little preamble before we get into your cyber journey. That coffee cup actually was from a dinner that Island sponsored for 10, TEN, and I can't remember what that stands for, but that's Marcy McCarthy. She runs that organization to get folks in cybersecurity together with excellent providers, and that was a chance for you and I to connect after several years, because we actually first connected many years ago in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in our
That's
professional
right.
careers.
Very true.
So, and just for the rest of the audience, the cup was one of the was the thank you for coming to the dinner thing, and it's really great. It's a heated cup, and so every time you all see me on the virtual CISO moment, and I'm raising my coffee cup, because I'm right-handed, you don't see the Island logo, but maybe if Island sponsors the podcast, hint, hint, maybe we'll turn that around and
That's right.
can work something out.
That's exactly right.
Anyway, Shaun, I don't want to take away from your time. Please tell us about your cyber journey from the day you were born until this morning.
Yeah. Well, it's born. Let's see. No, it's as you mentioned, we met quite a number of years ago. Credits. It's 2023. We probably met 18, 19 years ago, something like
Mhm.
that, or maybe even a little bit longer.
I was
At
at
that point,
MTSU, and you were at Cisco, right?
that is correct. Yeah, and at the
Mhm.
time, so being at Cisco was focused primarily on networking and things like that. The latter part of that decade, so 2008, 2009, was when I really kind of moved into cybersecurity, and it's the whole concept of cybersecurity is just extremely interesting to me because um, there's a lot of very well funded folks that are out there that are trying to do nefarious things to a lot of good people that are just trying to feed their family and all of that stuff. And being a
Mhm.
part of that fight, and the complexity of it and everything, it's very interesting to me. So I over the past 13, 14 years, I've been in the data loss prevention side, the network security side with firewalls and things like that, the endpoint security space where we were dealing with next generation antivirus protection and things like that, moving all the way up into the more recent SASE kind of space, and now most recently here at Island where we're doing some pretty interesting things. But it's been a fantastic journey, and I'll tell you, as you know better than anyone, it's definitely never boring. It's always
No,
something new.
you were saying that cybersecurity is interesting, and I almost jumped in and said, "Well, I don't know if that's exactly the word I'd use to say."
Right.
And it's interesting about a career path too, because I know, looking back at my younger years, I don't know if I would have ever thought that I would be sitting doing what I'm doing right now,
Mhm.
podcasting or the security stuff and all of that, and yet still it is interesting, and it is a constantly evolving um, uh, world because of the constantly evolving threats. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
when we come back in just a moment, we're going to talk a little bit about those threats, and maybe we'll get into
Mhm.
talking a little bit more about Island. I have to say too that when I hold up the coffee cup here, it's not just the cup that was the gift; it was the warmer. So when I first
Right.
held it up, I almost burned my hand.
Oh boy,
So,
don't do that.
but we'll be back in just a moment.
Sounds good.
vCISO Services is a small, specialized, veteran owned information security firm with a calling, founded on Christian values and focused on the needs of small and mid sized businesses. Our passion is to help small and mid sized businesses gain a fighting chance in an increasingly hostile cybersecurity threat environment by providing executive part time virtual CISO services, information security risk management services, and CISO advisory services. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. So obviously, I am passionate about helping small and mid-sized businesses in the cybersecurity space. What is, in your thoughts. Now you're coming from a little bit of a different perspective,
Mhm.
not a strict security practitioner, but certainly from the sales perspective. I would
Mhm.
imagine that different perspective, you'll see some things that maybe I won't see. Like, what are people like looking for example? What problems are they trying to solve? And that might lead you to thoughts on what do you think is one of the more significant threats to cybersecurity for small and mid-sized businesses today?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's, again, as you know, it's a very broad industry. A lot of times, my family will ask, my wife, we've been married for 28 years at this point, and she still to this day can't communicate to like our friends and family what exactly I do, because it is such a broad environment. And I'll tell you,
Right.
tactically, one of the things that I've noticed over the last number of years, specifically pre-COVID, is when I started seeing this a lot. Um, Small to medium businesses are under attack in a way that historically they haven't been to the degree and with the sophistication, um, because of many of their upstream connections. So what a lot of folks are doing now, some of the bad guys, instead of targeting the Fortune 500 and the Fortune 1000, they're actually specifically targeting small to medium businesses that may have back end connections doing business with those folks. And so
Mhm.
what you have is you have very well funded, very uh, equipped organizations that are targeting, you know, sometimes mom and pop shops and just smaller organizations that are really, again, just trying to feed their family. And so dealing with that threat can be very challenging. And so there's tons of tools, and we can talk about a lot of those different things. But I think at a macro level, the real challenge that SMB folks are focusing is just that issue of complexity. There's so many things. What do you do? Which product do you do? Who do you trust? And that's why somebody such as yourself that is, providing the service that you provide is so unbelievably valuable, because you can, with your background and expertise, you can wade through a lot of those things. But the complexity of knowing, where do you spend the small amount of dollars that you have to focus on that, not only from a tool set standpoint, but also from an expertise standpoint, I think is like I said, at the more strategic level, one of the biggest challenges that they face. Um, and candidly, one of the things that we're doing here at Island, to help fight that is, Island is an enterprise browser. And I know when you say browser, a lot of folks think, well, I've got Chrome, I've got Edge, I've got whatever, Firefox, whatever browser that you're using. What we attempted to do, the thesis within the founding of Island, was to say, what if we took a tool that everybody knows how to use intuitively, they use it every day, and we embedded a security stack into that tool that encompassed everything from data loss prevention and web categorization and tamper-proof protection and all of those things, but put it in a format that was consumable by the masses, and so you don't have to be an expert on everything. Now, of course, this is from an access standpoint. You still need a lot of the other stuff that on the back end side, but on the front end, the ability to compress what can be a very complicated stack into like I said, a tool that requires no training. No, you just kind of turn it on and you know how it works. We find it very valuable.
I don't know. I think that there's some people out there who don't know how browsers work. I just come across them
Right.
sometimes. I'm like, no, you go to the little hamburger thing on the upper right-hand corner,
Yeah.
click on settings, But
Yep.
anyway,
Yep.
I sorry for interrupting.
No, 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 no. I mean, that's, we can talk more in detail on that if you like, but that's really what we're doing. Imagine a tool that you literally upload bookmarks just like you would in Chrome or Edge, extensions, all of those things, but then actually have a policy behind the scenes that says, you're not going to be, whether you want to or not, you're not going to be able to take sensitive information out. Bad guys, even if they had your credentials, if they don't have your version of Island, they can't fish they can't do a command and control and steal your data and put your data out on the dark web. And this again happens all behind the scenes. So it just works.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna play a little role-playing game. This is the first time I've done it.
Please.
So
Yeah.
No, you're my test case here. I'm going to
Okay.
be small, mid-sized business, C type. Maybe not the CEO. Let's just say I'm the CIO. Okay, they
Okay.
don't have so, but I'm an IT guy. Now,
Hmm.
the first thing that I'm going to say, okay, you've come talk to me about, and this could be about any tool, but we'll focus on Island right now,
Right.
um, because the second part of this will focus on Island.
Hmm.
So you've come to me and you have presented that, hey, um, you probably have some security concerns, and so you start to get into the, I'll call it the elevator speech. You can call it the pitch. You can call it whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And I stop and I say, now, settle down there for a moment. We're too small. I mean, you're talking what you're talking about. That's for like the big folks out there. We don't need
Mhm.
all of these things. We're too small. We're not going to be a target or anything. What would your response be to that?
Yeah, I would say, as I said, kind of at the outset there, I would say look at who you're doing business with, right? Look at who you have connections with, and you by yourself may not be is a big enough target that as you're saying. Um, but if I can get a foothold into your organization, and then I can use that as a launching point to get into every vendor that you do business with, and they do this every day, then owning a piece of your real estate and being able to compromise your environment becomes extremely valuable to the adversary. And so you have, just by the sake of the connectivity, the connective tissue that you have with your various vendor community, um, and you may be big enough on your own, but if you look at that connectivity, you become very valuable to the adversary.
Oh, sure. I mean, supply chain risks are huge. In fact, to the point
Hmm.
now where, the federal government they're implementing the CMMC requirements slowly
Hmm.
but surely. But
Sure.
eventually, the smaller businesses, in order to do business with the government,
Hmm.
now it also becomes not only a should do, must do, but an absolute must do if you want to actually have business. And I think that
Hmm.
you're right. I think that in the wake of way back when, I always go back to the Target hack, which is almost 10 years ago. It was 2014, if I remember correctly.
Has it been
Um,
that long?
it has been. I
Wow.
know when I brought this up a couple weeks ago on the podcast, it's like and maybe I researched it wrong, but I believe it was 2014, and that was exactly it. It was a small HVAC company in Pennsylvania that was whacked and then used to get into Target to go to the point of sale, and then we know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say.
Sure.
Um, okay, well, I'm gonna change hats here for a second now.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna take off the CIO hat because it's too
Hmm.
technical, and I want to put on
Right.
like the CEO hat, or
Hmm.
maybe the one of the other C suites. So
Hmm.
you're talking about Island, and you said secure browsing and all of that, and you've talked about some stacks and this and that and everything else. But
Sure.
from a business standpoint, what what is Island going to do for me? And then after that, I'll put on my CISO hat and we'll talk some techie stuff after that.
Okay. Okay. Well, so Island, like I said, it's actually, we refer to it as the enterprise browser. Um,
Right, but
and
I
just
have an enterprise browser. Everybody in my
right.
enterprise has Chrome.
That's right. Yep.
So
So when you
why
think
do I want
about
Island?
when you think about, and I'll just say Chrome, but you can use that interchangeably with anybody else. A browser is designed from the ground up to do one thing, and that is to understand your behavior, so that they can serve ads to monetize your behavior. So privacy is antithetical from a browser standpoint. There, if you ever actually look at what goes on behind a browser when it's fired up, there are connections to, you know, tens, sometimes hundreds of different things behind the scenes, where information about your behavior, where you go, all of that stuff goes, and it goes everywhere. So the first thing that we did was we stripped all of that out. So there are no connections behind the scenes to so that your data is going to somewhere else where they can monetize it. You are in 100% control of your data. Number two, then, a browser natively doesn't understand who you are. until you log into something behind the scenes. You're essentially anonymous. So the only user experience change that we use from an Island standpoint is you have to log into it. So Island then knows who you are and verifies your identity so that it can then apply appropriate policy as to how you should be used. So if you're essentially a C-level person, you can now, maybe the founder of the company, you can now govern and ensure that anybody in your organization, in very simplistic terms, doesn't have the capability to take data, to take, download information about customer records, to do anything with data that you would not want them to do. They can't post things on Twitter that you don't want them to post. They can't do anything along those lines.
So from a technical side now, what I think I'm hearing is that in order to use the browser, you have to log in, which would imply that two things. First of all, that the browser can tie into the enterprise's identity access management. Would that be fair?
100%. 100%.
Whatever that they're using, and that
Correct.
second, that you can apply different policies based on user and based on role, much like we do, like say, an Active Directory, but you apply it directly within the browser. It isn't as if that we're saying to the firewall, it's like, okay, you can let through these URLs for this IP address, but not these. You're actually doing it natively in the browser. You don't have to worry about use those other controls for that sort of thing. Am I getting that correct?
100%. And we can also get more granular than that to say, well, let's just say, Greg, you run your own company and you're on your machine and you're logged in. And so you have the rights and privileges that you have.
I have it all because I'm the owner.
That's right. You have it all. But
I have all, which is not usually the best thing to do, by the way. I'm not.
Yeah.
Sometimes the CEO should not have all the privileges. So,
sure.
But anyway,
well, that's very true. But let's say, for example, you had a CFO that was responsible for all of your customer data, and so if they were on a machine that was provided by your organization, and they were logged in on their device in a known location. Well, then when they pulled up customer data, they should be able to see whatever type of customer data that they have. What if that same individual went down to Starbucks and was still on their machine, but now they're in an unknown environment where people could be looking over their shoulder and things like that? We actually have the dexterity within Island to be able to say, well, the CFO can still see that data, but because they're in an unknown environment, let's go ahead and just mask that data. So if they need to see it, they can click it and it will unmask so they can read it and use it, but then it will automatically remask to protect that data and protect from prying eyes and things like that. So
the browser can actually identify confidential information within a page, and based on the location of where the browser is browsing from, can obfuscate, that's a tough word for me to say sometimes, say like credit card numbers or account numbers or those sorts of things, but not permanently. It's like, well, if the CFO is in Starbucks and by default that's all blanked out, but they're sitting in a corner, there's a wall behind them, and they're like, okay, I already checked, I looked around, I'm okay.
Looking. Right.
Because I find that fascinating, because we always tell people that if you must be doing stuff in a public location that involves confidential information, even just sensitive information or private information with the business, make sure nobody's shoulder surfs you. But prior to this, I don't think I could identify any technical control out there that could enforce that. This is the first I've ever heard of that.
It is unique. There was a technology before that could do something similar, but it was so expensive and so administratively intense that the only folks that would implement it would be, let's say a hedge fund that was managing billions of dollars. It was a very intense solution that had to do with private key infrastructure and all that stuff. We can literally do it in minutes. I mean, it's literally very simple to do. The other thing that we can do that's interesting is part of the Island stack that I was referring to earlier, and the value to a small organization. We also have full, we call it in the industry, MDM checking, so mobile device management. So the ability to look at the machine and say, What is the security posture of this machine? Has it been infected? Does it have whole disk encryption? Those sorts of things. And so when somebody logs into a machine, again, if you think about a founder of a company and then people working for them, they may have somebody that's working on a machine at home that gets infected, but then tries to log back in to Island and do business. Well, we actually have the capability native within Island to say, wow, this machine is now at a different level of security posture, and it now we need to either say they cannot log in and do business until they clean their machine, or maybe they don't have malware, maybe they just have some sort of they have an updated AV to where they need it to do. So we'll let them log in, but in a without full rights and privileges. Again, that's all baked in and native to Island with that ability. So.
And to kind of take this a little bit of a step back for folks listening to this as to why this is important, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, just starting from the idea of implementing all of these items within the browser, all you have to do is step back and say one word: COVID, because COVID, while we had remote workers before, with the traditional, okay, come in VPN, that sort of thing, it exploded, and to the point where I don't believe that we're ever going to get close to back to. We are getting somewhat back for folks coming back into the office, but there's always going to be more of a component of hybrid, because we were forced to realize that a lot of things work very well. We also realized a lot of things didn't work really well. And one of the things that didn't work really well was ensuring the security of the users out there. And this, since the hybrid environment is going to be around forever now, this is very timely. So I mean, but you guys were working on this well before COVID, right?
We actually we were in stealth for a little over 2 years, because we knew if we were going to put something that was as intimate as a browser, everybody uses a browser every day for all aspects of their life, we knew that it had to be ready. So we spent a long time in stealth. We're fortunate to have some amazing investors. Sequoia Capital, which was outside investor number one for both Cisco and Apple, is our lead investor. We're fortunate to be valued at this point about $1.3 billion. So what they saw in us was they saw something that had never been done before. We came out of stealth in March of last year, 2022, and the reception that we've gotten from the market has been like nothing I've ever seen. I'm literally, right before we got on this call, we're in the final stages of myself. This is just me as an individual or a rep, closing a deal that's about 600,000 users around the world, where we will be the primary browser for this organization globally. And obviously I can't name names, but the level of interaction that we're having with the Fortune 100, specifically for what you mentioned, the hybrid workers, the contractor use case, all of these people moving around in a very dynamic fashion. How do you maintain custody of the data and control as to how they're interacting with their applications? It's a very difficult problem to solve, and Island is doing it in a very unique way, and the market is taking notice. So it's exciting. It's a lot of work, but it's exciting. It's a lot of fun too. So
no, it's great stuff, and I did want to just to mention before we got off of Island. Got off of the island. Okay, it's like Gilligan. But I as I have gone, I think I mentioned this to you at the dinner last summer, because I think it was July or something like that. It's been a while, but that I rarely at this point in my career do these sorts of vendor sponsored dinner, even knowing that there's going to be cool bling like this available, because quite honestly, I don't find it all that interesting. But when I saw the invite and read up a little bit on Island, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. Now I have to say, I'm not endorsing the product, but I was so intrigued by the idea and the fact that there was no other really pragmatic solution in this space. You mentioned that, yes, there was this technology, but you had to be like, you had to be a very rich company. It wouldn't help
Hmm.
with the folks I
Hmm.
work with. So
Yeah.
very excited to hear some of the stuff. I'm glad that I'm glad that you were able to share some of that stuff, and
Sure.
wish we had a lot more time to talk about Island specifically. But I'm going to pivot right now because I know that working in cybersecurity, folks know where I'm going with this, can
Hmm.
be very stressful. I do know how stressful sales can be right now because since I pivoted about 6 or so years ago to being a provider, I've been on the back end of, well, folks ask for a proposal, you give them a proposal, you spend all this time on it, and then you're ghosted. I mean, I I I I think I have to do a whole podcast. Maybe I'll invite you back on how to deal with being ghosted. I mean, so
Yeah.
here's my advice to sales folks that are out there right now. It's and Shaun, if this is not good advice, not to sales folks, I'm sorry, but to folks that are engaging with sales folks. Um, and if I'm off on this in any way, shape, or form, let me know because you've been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Hmm.
But please give them the common courtesy. If they've spent time learning about your problem, want to give a solution, okay, maybe you were just looking at the bottom line, so to speak, and you're just looking at the dollar figure, and you go through the 15-page proposal, you get to page 13 where the dollar figure is, you say,
Yeah.
okay, put that in the reject pile, and then forget about it. That's fine. You want to reject it for price, whatever, you don't read the rest, that's fine. But please, at the very least, say thank you for
Hmm.
providing the proposal. Is that
Yeah.
fair? Okay.
Yeah. I would agree wholeheartedly. And I know everybody's extremely busy, but yeah, it's
And
it would be very much appreciated. So
and I hope, and if I'm wrong, you don't have to say it, but I hope that in my days at MTSU, when you would have provided me a proposal, I hope that I did say, if we didn't accept it, that I'm sorry, but I appreciated your time. If I didn't say that, then I'm just going to smack myself upside the head.
Greg, I gotta tell you, this is, in case it's not obvious, this is the first time I've ever actually done a podcast, and the only reason that I really accepted the invite, and thank you again for the opportunity, was on my side of the table, you get to meet an awful lot of folks, and you get to see real quick who's genuine, who has integrity, and we have to sell or attempt to sell to everybody, but having known you as long as I have and watched your journey from MTSU to what you're doing now, it's been a pleasure to watch that journey, and congratulations on all of your success. But you're somebody that I have a lot of respect for, and support you in any way I can, because you're one of the good
Well,
guys.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that I've left you with a good memory and not like, oh boy, he was horrible. But so from all the stress of cyber and the stress of
Hmm.
folks not saying thank you and all that, or giving a little bit of respect. Hopefully that doesn't happen all that often. But what's one of the things that you do to decompress, to get away from the stress of all this?
Yeah, I've got 4 kids too, so from 21 down to 10, so they keep me busy. Honestly, the thing that I got a little bit out of, but I'm getting back into, and I think you and I actually ran a race at one point, the Murfreesboro. I can't remember which one, the middle half, maybe something like that. But I tell you,
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I did every one of the middle halves. So they're not doing it anymore. Last year was the
yeah,
last year, or 2 years
yeah.
ago was the last year. So
The thing I find, obviously with 4 kids and everything, married for 28 years, I spend an awful lot of time with my family. And right now, my son's in middle school football. My daughter's in dance. My older daughter's at UT. My oldest son is doing some volunteer work at NHC. So stay really busy with them. But for me, it's really important to get outside into nature, outside of the blinky lights and the bits and bytes, and
yeah.
run, walk, just spend time outside is really important. Hike. We're actually doing, my daughter and I and youngest son are doing rim to rim to rim in October. So over in the Grand Canyon. So wish me
Oh
luck.
my. Well, that takes care of the last question about future plans. It sounds like that you've got a good trip planned out there. So,
Absolutely.
and as far as going outside, yeah, I think I have to after this and
Yeah.
enjoy some of the day here in beautiful downtown Franklin. Well, Shaun,
Very good.
thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
This is a little bit of a different episode than normal, but I had an awful great time with it. Not an awful time, an awful great time. Love the coffee cup. Again, not promoting Iowan, but y'all really should seriously look into this. The browser.
We've got to talk about that, no doubt.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining.
Greg, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thanks again for the opportunity.
All right. And everybody, stay secure.